Hey guys, my name is Nabil. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunchbox. We're an enterprise ordering system. Today we are talking to some of the best people in enterprise. We have operators, we have POS leaders, and we're going to talk about all things fragmentation in restaurant tech and how do you consolidate, how do you do it intentionally without hurting your franchisees, franchisors, and the guest, of course. So that's going to be our discussion today, and I'm really, really excited for us to hear from these awesome people. So we'll get started. We'll get started with Wade. Wade, would love a quick intro for the few people who don't know you. And as we go round robin, I would love to add something fun, which is, what is the most misunderstood part of your job?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, awesome to be here with you guys and hanging out. EVP of Strategic Growth for Costa Vida. If you don't know Costa Vida, it's a little small, about 100 restaurant Mexican concept. A lot of flavors, a lot of bold kind of peppers and great proteins, and that's the angle that we've kind of brought in. So kind of Baja flavors, if you will, to the U.S. And my role, I've had a 15-year run within the restaurant space, previously with Chili's and Maggiano's for about 10 years on that role as a CIO and a Chief Digital Officer. And then prior to that, it was all mobility and agency work on the web and app side. So it's kind of my run. The question was something that's misunderstood about my role or my job.
Point of view from your wife or your peers, wherever you want to go.
Well, people think I'm desktop support. Like I don't know anything about PCs or Macs, right? I think that's the funniest thing is if you have anything related to tech. Hey, my mouse doesn't work. I'm like, that's a problem. You should get that looked at. Right? I'm not the guy. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the IT in the title.
Yeah,
it really throws people off.
Right.
Yeah.
Kevin Bentley. I've been in the industry for about 10 years now. I'm currently the head of technology for Jollibee North America Group, which is US and Canada, overseeing 6 concepts, soon to be 8 concepts by the end of the year. Prior to that, I was the CIO at Papa Gino's and then at Inspire for about 5 years. So nice run, good entry into the industry. I came in as a project manager, rolling out POS system to 1,200 locations in 3 months. No small feat, but we got it done. One of the things, I'm going to second what Wade said, but even at home, like something goes wrong with an iPhone or a tablet or something. Dad, you're the tech person. You need to fix this. Well, I don't know how to fix it. Did you restart it? So a lot of people consider you the help desk, and like you should know everything about tech and the way technology is evolving and growing. It's hard to keep up with everything, and so within the space, you are kind of a specialist. So I like to say I'm the leader of the circus. I wrangle everyone around all the smarter people to get the work done.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And we got to work together at Papa Gino's when you were there.
Yeah, I got a chance to beat up on the Bill and his team a little bit.
I used to be a happier. I used to be bigger, stronger, and this project was super fun and innovative.
Yeah, a lot of challenges there as well, but good learnings, good partnership, and I think we both came out on the other side of it a lot better from process, people, and technology improvement. So good, healthy discussion.
Absolutely, Jared.
Jared East, head of technology for Lazy Dog Restaurants. We're a 50 restaurant chain around the country, casual dining. Been with the company for about a decade. Before that, but I've been in the restaurant tech space for almost 30 years.
Is that where the hair went?
So since I was 5, 30 years.
Great question.
Right?
Great question.
Right. That's too many fixing the desktop questions. Yeah. But I would say that as far as a misunderstood aspect is that the tech guys, maybe we're the smart guys, but that we're going to be not very personable. So we pride ourselves in our department. We want to be more personable than the marketing team. So we'll see the marketing team like huddling together and we're out there and we try to, be the life of the party. So I think that's a misconception that's starting to change. Obviously here in Vegas, you can see that.
Absolutely.
We can party.
You can. There's no doubt.
No.
Talking about partying, perfect segue to Anthony.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anthony Presley. I run tech and product for Custom Business Solutions. We're a technology partner that's been in business for about 30 years, and we service about 11,000 restaurants all over the United States and the coasts. And We service a number of different POSs, and then a couple of years ago, we actually built our own, not a small feat. And so we have Northstar, which is our flagship product that we go to market with. Prior to my role here, I've been here just over 3 years, was actually in the grocery space. And so worked with large tier 1 retailers in grocery and also in general retail. And then thought I'd come jump into the complexities around restaurants, which might lead a little bit into, what's misunderstood about my role. And not to echo what you guys said, but I would say that most folks that are not in tech are very confused as to why simple things aren't as simple as they should be.
There you go.
Yeah, Apple spends billions of dollars making things really, really easy.
Why
and
can't
so,
you make search just like Google?
Right. Yeah. So I think when you start working with operators in the field, or my wife, any of that, why is this not easier? And so it's hard. Tech is hard.
Tech is hard.
Sure.
Yeah. You all shared a similar sentiment about our job being misunderstood a little bit, and us being like tech support, especially when we come home. I think what's very important for people to realize is, you guys have to really, there's a lot of strategy involved. You have like multiple brands in multiple countries, and a lot of you have multiple brands. You guys have to ask yourself, when do we consolidate? Or, when do we leave it alone? When do we address it later? I mean, that's a question we all are answering all the time. I'd love to start with that one. How do you guys strategize that conversation?
That's a really good question. So Costa Vida has a sister brand called Fat Cats, which is actually, think about a Dave & Buster's type, bowling alleys, movie theaters, kind of gaming. And we've actually tried to consolidate systems across platform. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work. And it's just, I wish I had a magic crystal ball to tell me when it worked, because sometimes you get all the way down the path, you're like, man, we made the wrong decision. And at that point, you've got to unwind and get back to where you need to be. And we're actually actively going on today trying to figure out how do we consolidate some of the systems within internally, but then across platform, how do we figure out that? And it's not easy. Back to just make it easy. Apple makes it easy. Amazon makes it easy. You're like, holy cow, man, it is a lot of work and strategic thinking to get through that process.
Yeah.
I think additionally to add to that, people continue to compare to Apple and Amazon and things they're doing. Some of the challenges there, though, are resource and capital, right? They have a plethora unlimited version. We have limited both, and we're doing it with a lean team and trying to get all these initiatives done. So that's where the consolidation really comes in from the administrative side, a lot of the back end configuration. What we look at, and I continue to say this, is, from my football days, is run, block, tackle. Yeah. The POS system has to be unified across the system if you can. Your back office solution, right? Those kind of systems where you can use economy of scale and leverage maybe that lean team that now we only have one POS versus in my past I've had to upwards of 30 when I ran a franchise business for Arby's. I'm like, dude, we only know 5 of those. We have to go back and research and all of this. So some of the things we've done is we're consolidating our POS system. We're consolidating our back office solution, the main components, and then what can we tag on from there. But you got to get the basics and the fundamentals right. I know a lot of people are saying the POS system is going to go away, but it's still your record of truth. And you have to make sure that's in place.
Is the POS system going away?
I was actually going to ask the three of you, because everyone shook their head. I don't think the POS is going away. I sure hope not. That's kind of our core business. But the way that transactions get moved, this word that I hate, you see all the time, this omni-channel, right? It's the buzzword. It's just before AI, right? So the omni-channel idea and where and how you're going to handle the transaction and the record and the complexities of payments in the United States. I don't think the POS is going anywhere.
That's right.
Internet in the United States is still not super reliable, and you can get backups and all of that, and then you find out somebody across the mall took a bulldozer and took out all the fiber, and you're just without internet. We actually have a very large publicly traded customer that lost a store because of that. And the cell phone towers aren't nearby. So I think you still have to have a core POS. Now, POS may go back and forth a little bit, and you've got online ordering trying to come into the store, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, there's a fundamental difference between we're trying to service the guest off-prem because there is that growth in there, and that's different. Like our motto for off-prem or digital is speed is loyalty, right? But that isn't. But we're lazy dog. That's you're not going to say speed is loyalty on the inside, and so where the point of sale differentiates from off-prem is this thing called hospitality. And if everything's self-service, you lose hospitality. And so that use case of that hospitality, of having Will Gadara there and giving unreasonable hospitality. And we all still want that, even if you have this online premise. The online premise is just to provide extra channels to bring them into the brand. But if you don't have the brand and you don't have that unreasonable hospitality, that's the point of sale. It has to handle how the servers handle things. It's not going to be all self-service. And so it needs to handle tips, and it needs to handle teams, and it needs to handle distributions and things that you're not even paying attention to on an online ordering.
I'm so happy how quickly you touched on hospitality, right? Because not only do we have tech fragmentation, we have fragmentation between online and offline, right? I would love to hear from you guys. How are we using technology to make online a little bit more hospitality friendly? What we love to do is serve food, right? I'll give you a small example, right? Like one of the things I was doing as a restaurant operator, whenever we saw a regular come in, we would buy them a beer on the house, even though you shouldn't do that. Maybe something else on the house, a coffee or something. And that was, when we had one location, that was amazing. That scaled, right? When we had 50, we needed to put that in technology. So have you guys used technology to bring part of your in-store hospitality online?
Well, that's where the unification is. It's underneath, it's under the hood. So I always like to say, I like to copy, Steve Jobs. Great technology is invisible. Right, so that's how you separate the wheat from the chaff. And so the great technology is a unified customer record. That's the stuff we can be working on. That's the stuff everyone's working on, right? And everyone is building a CDP now. Everyone thinks a database is a CDP, right? But without the identity resolution. But so those are the pieces. So you can have an offline and an online, and your through line is the guest, right? And so how do you bring those custom guest experiences where you're able to upsell and change the online experience? I think that next generation is get that throughput, that through line of the guest, and be able to provide that in the point of sale, that sort of get a custom experience as well.
Yeah, also, one of the things I think about, and I know everyone's, we're in this digital age, which sometimes is putting the words of AI and omni-channel, right? Like digital, it's not any different than technology in general, but there's some things you can do from an online aspect that bring your in-store personality and presence online. Sure. For example, imaging. When you have a great plate that's laid out in restaurant, most people take a picture of it. Well, why wouldn't you give those same kind of photographs on your website or on the DoorDash or aggregators of the world, right? So bringing that kind of experience to the online channels. Also, additionally, how do you make that more of a seamless transaction, right? Where it's 3 clicks to purchase, or you got recommendation engines, or how do I make that one-to-one marketing where now I'm sitting in front of the guest, I can say, hey, would you like that additional cookie? How do I do that in a way that resonates with the guest online and doesn't make the process more cumbersome, right? So it's all about speed, efficiency, and then ultimately, we're still in the hospitality business. And I think from an industry's perspective, as we've moved to online, we're all struggling or have challenges of how do we bring our in-store experience to these additional channels.
It's hard.
And that's the way I'm looking at it from a tech standpoint.
The recommendation engine, that needs to be brought to the point of sale. Because you can do so much on e-commerce. How do you bring it inside?
You just got to make it less frictionless. I think we've been working on that term for a long time, but it does just continue to stack up on us.
That's right.
Even now, we went through a process where we overhauled the online experience, and we missed a piece, right? Our loyalty engine wasn't working the way we needed it to. So we had this great front end, great pretty pictures, easy clicks, saved orders, like very fast, efficient, great Apple Pay, but it didn't do us any good if the loyalty engine isn't delivering the way it needs to be. And so you're like, okay, we created more friction, right? So it's this constant. It's this circular motion of always going back and optimizing these to make them feel like the in-restaurant experience. Because when we sit down at a table, if we're at a fast casual or a casual dining restaurant and somebody walks up to the table, it's easy, right? You take an order, they walk away. We have a great conversation, they drop the drinks, they drop the food, it's a great experience. And if you're fighting with your app, or you're fighting with your website, or you can't get your loyalty points, you have to call somebody, like it just blows up the whole experience.
I agree. The only people who should be fighting at the table are the kids.
Right.
And not you with your phone.
Let them bicker, but nobody else.
Absolutely. Right. You just mentioned loyalty, and I think loyalty systems are broken everywhere. Yes. Right. I think the fragmentation there is like, hey, let's just do 10% discount, and it works.
Churn and burn.
Yeah, churn and burn, right? Yeah. You guys have something unique. You have a subscription program. Yeah. I think that's a great form of loyalty system out there. Would love to hear a little bit about that, and from everyone else on how you guys are getting loyalty right? Like instead of just offering discounts.
Yes, we had our CMO say, look, I don't even want to use the L word. This is not loyalty, this is membership. And we want people to be a member of this brand. And he happened to be from Disney. And I remember he'd come to me and he'd said, hey, Jared, what I want it to work so that you're buying a membership, an item like a burger, seamlessly in line. And I said, well, that's great, but you can't do that at Disney today, right? You have to go across the venue. At Costco, you have to go at the front. You have to get a separate transaction. Of course, we all know purchasing the membership in line, getting the discounts right. Like if I was buying the toys at Disneyland and I could, I'll add on the membership and get the 10% off. That would be great. So that I was tasked with that. And about a year later, we had built a product where you could sort of sell it all in line and tokenize that one subscription, move that up to e-commerce. You know, there is a merger of e-commerce and inside the four walls and creating a frictionless experience. It hasn't been easy. It's been years of work.
Yeah.
It's persistence and so we've continually iterated, and we have this great, curated beer club membership program, and our marketing team spends inordinate amount of times working with logistics and distributors and unique beer, microbrews around the country so that we have something. So part of these like fads that we're talking about, they will all work if you can put the time in. You can't do everything. Our COO always says, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. And so for us, it works. Some people, it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But for us, it works because as an organization, we spent a lot of time and getting the entire organization to, row in the same direction. And it's been great. It's been a great vehicle to bring avid Lazy Dog fans into the fold.
I think from a loyalty perspective, our industry is missing it, right? As I look at the other industries like hospitality, the hotel industry, retail industry, there's
Airlines.
a different spin on loyalty. It's not all about like a 10% discount.
Right.
It might be about the experience you have coming into that space.
Yeah.
Right.
And we need to get away from, we
Discount,
have loyalty as
discount,
discount,
that's right.
discount.
Yeah.
And how do we start to offer our guests a more unique experience
That's right.
that means more to them than just the 10 or 15% off an item?
Yeah.
Right. And so when I think about loyalty, I'm looking at it from that perspective of how do I create an experience that resonates with my guests?
Yeah.
And that experience is different for each.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's the key. Is it's different for each
Yeah,
customer.
that's
So
right.
in order to get there, you got to know that customer database.
Yeah.
Because Nabil and Wade are very
you go.
different. Right?
Yeah.
And I think back to what your comment was in grocery, because I started my career in grocery, and the whole premise of that grocery database was about knowledge of the customer,
Yeah.
so that you can communicate in a timely fashion with an appropriate offer if one's needed, or an experience that would drive them back into the grocery store. It got a little muddy and convoluted, and the theory got away from what the actual application was. But I think we all know it around the table. My wife eats at restaurants very different than I eat at
That's
restaurants, right? I'm not the fine dining kind of guy. Just give me a lot of food and make it taste pretty good and I'll go at it, right? So for me, and it's less about price sensitivity than it is for my wife who's feeding a family of 6, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. If we know our guests and we can
That's
use,
right.
you said it earlier, the underpinning element of all this tech is the data.
That's what should be unifying.
Yeah,
If
Absolutely.
we get that right,
Yep.
then we'll know if a guest loves a certain table in the corner,
That's
or
right.
if they need a discount, or if they just need to be communicated because it's Cinco de Mayo.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Anthony, let's wrap up loyalty with you. Any awesome loyalty campaign you worked on, either with a loyalty partner or just with your own tech? And because you guys are like so focused on the in-store experience, there's so much loyalty to be built in there. May that be, scan to pay, what Starbucks is doing and others are doing. Would love for you to close us out on loyalty.
Yeah, we've done a couple of different things that have been fairly unique. And right before COVID, we had actually done something for a brand that's no longer around that was actually one-to-one couponing, which is actually very prevalent inside of grocery. You think of Bed Bath & Beyond and their deal. And so they actually had someone from retail come over into restaurant. And although I'm not a big fan of the transactional marketing, we actually built an entire program for them to be able to do this one-to-one couponing. And the interesting thing had to do with the workflow, less about the coupons. And the workflow was that you would come in with the coupon, scan in at a kiosk. It knew who you were because that coupon was unique to that person. It knew who you were. It knew what your most recent orders were. And it could actually then bring up, basically a saved basket and send you right through the line. And so we took away a lot of the friction of just even checking out and using the loyalty just to go right on through. Unfortunately, table service brand. That didn't fare so well over through COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of neat as you look at some of the other interesting industries and what's going on. Just coming back from a conference in grocery, talking about all the subscription clubs that are going on, and are you going to really belong to both Walmart and Amazon's free delivery? Probably not. You're probably going to pick one.
Yeah.
And now you've cemented that relationship for at least for the year, because you're not going to go get a second one. And I don't know that restaurant brands think about it in the same way.
Yeah.
But I want to piggyback on that because I was talking to Bill about this yesterday.
I don't remember the conversation.
I'm an avid In-N-Out fan, right?
Okay.
Born and raised in Los Angeles. The dual drive-through, they were doing it in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
The line busting, all the things that we're trying to do now, they were doing way back
Right.
then. However, they don't have a loyalty program.
Don't.
They've created an environment and an experience and a cult following that does not need me to have a discount.
Yeah.
That's right.
Additionally, because they built that, they get frequency out of me, right?
That's
if
right.
I go home to LA and I'm there 7 days, I can guarantee you I'm eating there 4 days,
Yep.
right? And it's the same thing every time, but the experience, no matter where I go,
right.
is that. And then people are like, oh, you're eating In-N-Out. Oh my God. And there's a story behind it. Like,
Right.
oh, I love In-N-Out too. And so again, going back to how do we create this experience versus here's 10%, come see us.
Right.
And it's
That's
more
right.
transactional.
We all
right?
want-
You talking In-N-Out fan, it's a cult.
Yeah.
Similar to
Cult-like
Chick-fil-A.
following. That's
Yeah.
what everyone wants,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Chick-fil-A has loyalty, but
Yeah.
it's a cult following, and they've created an experience that makes you want to be a part. Think about it like a sports team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't offer you a discount, but you
Right.
pay the amount to go watch your
Right.
team play every
Right.
week.
And
right?
buy their jerseys
Yeah.
and put their
Yeah.
stickers
Yeah,
on.
someone was unwise enough to challenge Kevin last night during dinner about the fries. Like, I like their burgers, I don't like their fries. And his response, I kid you not, was, "Oh, that's because you don't like real potatoes." I'm not kidding.
It's like an Apple Google
Yes.
type of like
Yes.
you were offended.
Yeah.
You're such a brand ambassador.
Guys, we talked
funny.
about engagement a lot. Engagement doesn't like loyalty and engagement. These systems don't work without great data, right? You've built a very sophisticated one while you were at Chili's. We'd love to hear a little bit about, the blueprint there and how you guys leverage that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of money,
Yeah.
first of all.
That helps.
And we had a lot of resources, right,
Yeah.
to make that happen.
Yeah.
And, to establish that and pass data the way we needed it to and to build the infrastructure was, it wasn't a small feat. And it took several years of concerted focus. And you talked about it earlier, to make sure that we had all that infrastructure in play to make it work right. Now that I'm in a smaller, fast casual organization, I actually, there's a lot of like reminiscing of, man, if we just had half the budget that we had last time, or if we just had half the resources to get to where we need to be. But yeah, I mean, I'll just go back to, it was a concerted effort. It was a high focus. We knew that it would pay off in the long term, and we just dedicated the time and effort to get there. One, it created stability, and two, it created this optimization for our customers to springboard to where we can do things like really great loyalty and really great stuff, innovation that we hadn't had before.
Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting that he says that about innovation and how they built their platform. Wade and I did an interactive activity at Mertech Exec about innovation, right? If you remove the budgetary challenges and you remove the resource challenges, what kind of ideas could you come up with? And in an hour, we probably came up with the group 5 or 6 ideas that we could actually go back and implement right away, right? Sometimes we put these constraints on what we can do with what we have. But if that's off the table and giving our team space to do that, what could we come up with, right? And we continue to talk about data. Yes, data is king right now, but the more we use the data, the less we actually use it. What I mean by that is you have all these millions of rows of data and you're probably really tapping into 10 to 15 rows.
Yeah.
Your basics, name, email, blah, 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 right? The PII.
Got it.
So how do you take that now and really do something with it? Because we have paralysis by analysis now because we have so much data. And I believe at a certain point, it's actually inhibiting us from moving forward because we're spending most of our time trying to analyze this data.
Yeah.
And I'm not an analyst. I can't tell you how to that says I should do this. Is that actually the thing? And so I'm excited about some of the players we have here at Mertech and that are really starting to tap into those actionable insights from the data. It's not the data that's important. You can keep the data as long as you give me the actionable insights and the ways to contact my consumer base.
Sure.
That's what I actually need.
Right.
Yeah, we saw something yesterday that was pretty
Yeah.
remarkable. the ability to be almost like the Star Trekky of computer, tell me the answer to this question, or just go find you the answer in the database, as opposed to,
Some of that
hey,
generative
can you
AI.
have the
Yeah.
Tableau team create me a chart and in 2 days get it back to me so I
Yeah.
can analyze what actually happened in restaurant 4498? Like this ability to almost get to a commerce or a conversational analytics is that can be game changer.
Yeah.
That can be game
What are the few numbers you're looking at? Few key metrics you're looking at?
I would say we're a very heavy data-oriented, data-forward company. Again, big investment. We started about 7 years ago at the beginning of like when Power BI was like, oh, you go Tableau, and we've built quite a bit. We track everything. And so we're not at that CDP level, but guest sentiment is big, and we pull all of that data in from DoorDash and surveys and, and real-time sales and labor, things like that, those standards. But we're very much, hey, are we comping too much? Is there fraud here? We use our data to automate reconciliations between all these disparate platforms. The thing that you were saying about that unify that you built that integration layer, that sort of enterprise service bus. I remember how hard that was, and the good news is that stuff gets easier over time. I remember being at Mertech 6 years ago, and Sweetgreen was there, and they built their ESB, and they called it Gravy because they had to build it like you did with a huge team. Well, nowadays that stuff is like, you turn on a service in AWS, you turn on an Event Grid, you turn it on in Azure. We had built one of those recently, and I was like, you two guys, you built Event Hub Enterprise Service Bus? Let's give it a name. And my head of engineering's like, Jared, this is no longer cool. Like, right? So
It's not the cool thing to do anymore.
Yeah, you don't put a name to it because I didn't put out 20 engineers like maybe you did. And so as time goes on, sometimes whatever we're doing, we're all early innovators in something. And someone else is innovating in something else, but then eventually it democratizes.
As it should with tech,
and it
right?
should,
Over
right.
time, it should get simpler and easier and faster.
Yeah.
And the cost exposure for us should go down over time.
Yeah.
But the problem is you want to get ahead of it, but then sometimes you end up in a legacy position because you've built this all from
Isn't
scratch
that funny?
with a bunch of engineers.
Yes,
And now Amazon
absolutely.
and Google and everybody else is throwing in there, and you're like, well, dang, they're just
did
way
way
better than
better.
ours.
Yeah.
How do we get off this,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a few of those.
I think going back to your original question about the tech systems and the disparate systems, right? You're also seeing that with the data,
Absolutely.
right? And me having multiple brands, people are reporting different. They're reporting sales
Oh,
different.
man.
They're looking at
Yeah.
the data different.
Yep.
And so we're trying to unify that aspect of tech as well because, for example, in the U.S., we use net sales. In the Philippines, they use gross sales. But even they bastardize that and they take out the employee discounts, right? But isn't that the same as giving the customer a discount? So why wouldn't you take?
Yeah.
So
Right.
and then the way we're slicing and dicing the data in that example, we're reporting different numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
And so those are challenges as well with the data.
Yeah. Listen, every time I complain about my job, I just think about being an accountant for a restaurant company. And that's when I feel much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony, what was you are the source of truth as the point of sale system, and you're being asked to expose data all the time, right? Because no matter who needs it, online ordering company, a loyalty company, it needs to start on the point of sale system. Anything stands out to you, like any last piece of data that you are asked to expose by an operator or a tech company that you guys have done that stands out to you?
I was just going to comment on the data and the data silos, right? The more we talk about these enterprise service buses, and then we go and figure out how do we get that data in between the applications and where it needs to be for the business operators. What's been interesting, I think, over the last couple of years, as there's been a lot of innovation, Jared might talk about labor, and historically we might go, oh, labor is when you go in and when you go out and who the employee was and what their position was, like basic records, and that's there. But as time goes on and this software becomes more and more specialized, and the thing that we need to operate on, we need this extra little field. We need this extra data element that wasn't there when we built the data mart to begin with, right? I need to know how many shift swaps happened in a labor set area, or I need to know the default components, not just the components, or I need to know this price override, but only at this certain time, right? And as you get into these specialties, the combos, but only the auto combos, because I want to know speed of service, right? And suddenly that wasn't in the data mart because that functionality may not even existed 5 years ago. And so now you've got to get that out. And so that's something I think you're all shaking your head. So we all wrestle with this, and how as each of these pieces and products and software become specialized, that you've got this thing that suddenly matters to operations that probably didn't matter 5 years ago or 3 years ago.
After we've decided what to consolidate, and what to leave alone for now. I think the next thing is rollouts. Right, rollouts are so hard, guys. I think this is a moment to let it out. All right, this is therapy. Like, how do we do that right? How do we do it with two stakeholders in mind that we are constantly thinking about? The operators of these locations, may that be a franchisee or a franchisor, whoever, and also the end user who's like, wait, I don't care you move from Patronics to Punch. What happened to my points?
I would love anybody on this table to tell me how to do this because I can't. I just get thumped on every side when I do this.
I think the problem is, I was just talking to someone else about that, and they're like, operations just expects that it just works, right? So they want you to be cutting edge and forward thinking, and oh, by the way, have Google search or generative AI everywhere, and it just needs to work. And right, you got like 3 hours,
and don't change anything.
Right,
I want it all to work better.
Yeah.
Exactly like the last.
But we do it. Yeah, we do it like this. Like, what? And so the problem is really communicating and building a culture of that iterative environment. And that's hard because there are those agile-minded people and there are those, that perfectionist-minded person, right? And so how do you meet all those stakeholders? I think one of the ways, well, we have an alpha that's always happy path. And even that alpha is like in and out. And that alpha can take a while. And we really don't promise too much after alpha. We have aspirational goals. And the board, and of course, they kind of know that. But we really try to push that out because that alpha can be so long, right, to get all that stakeholders. But it's all alpha happy path. And then when we start to figure it out, we have a lot of collaborative meetings of vision, trying to get everyone's different vision. And once we really get like marketing and ops and tech and facilities all together, like this is how we're doing it, guys, then you start to go into beta. And in beta, though, now you have to have some unhappy path stuff, right? So if you roll up the table, our first rollout was, Cupertino, who's 98% credit cards, right? They're right next to the Apple spaceship, right? Easy. This worked. They love it. It's so fast. Well, now your beta has to be, for us, it was Downey, where it's 30% cash, right? And they're like, what the hell is this system? I didn't want the cash. This pay at the table. So you have to quickly build the right thing in the happy path, but then you quickly have to address the monsters, and
When it comes to rollouts, I'm going to take a step back, and you talked about your beta. Even before that, it has to become somewhat of an educational piece because, like you said, they just expect it to work all the time. Steve Jobs, it should be seamless and invisible. Yes, except for when it doesn't work, right?
When it's not working.
And the leaders don't really understand tech. They put these timelines together, and then you're expected to meet them, or you're brought in on the back end of the conversation. Where techies, we have to know about marketing, we have to know about ops, right? It's very rare that they pour into and try to learn what we're doing to make the ecosystem work better. So once you can educate on what it takes and why it's so cumbersome at times, and we're going to hit some roadblocks, then you get into the rollout, right? And I'm venting. Because you get these unruly timelines, and then it's like, well, this doesn't work the way I wanted. This doesn't work. Well, if you go back to our requirements, we said this wasn't going to work out the gate.
You have to be
You got to give me an iterative approach so that I can get to that. And it's, I don't know, if someone has the answer to how you can help the other leaders understand what we do and why it takes so long and why we probably should be the first one at the table when you have an idea if it has anything technology related. And so that part is challenging. And then from the operations standpoint, they need to be clicking on all cylinders, and I don't think the communication really gets facilitated down to them in a way that they understand this is coming with challenges, but we're going to get there.
It's the change.
This is bringing a lot of feelings out for me.
I mean, when you look at it,
we need a shot versus the water.
It feels it's more change curve than anything. And as much as our jobs are tech and innovation and making it work and stringing this all together, usually very few CIOs or heads of innovation and technology that I've seen walk in without a plan. Like it's not just like, we're going to willy-nilly this thing and try to figure it out. Like it never is that way. They come in with a very clear set of requirements and plans and alpha beta rollout. But it's the comms down to the field or the comms to the franchise partner or the comms to the whoever that didn't either, they weren't paying attention, they didn't get it, they didn't read the materials, and then the blame immediately comes back, well, this dang thing doesn't work. And you're like, did you go do the training? Well, no. Well, it's 2 minutes, and I promise if you click 2 different buttons in the POS, it will work.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that changes everything, right? But this is the battle. We've all done this. We've banged our head, and as soon as you go to the next rollout, you're like, man, I'm going to be bloodied and bruised after this, but this is what we're going to do, and here we go again, right?
And I think this is why I've seen, leaders such as yourself in IT have such great personalities, or have a lot of personalities, like we mentioned at the beginning of the panel, because you have to sell. You have to communicate. Absolutely. You have to get people excited. Yep. It's like leading a locker room. You've done this again and again. You have to get everyone pumped, and even when you do that, it will still go wrong.
That's right.
And you have to tell them that this is part of the process.
Yeah. We're gonna get through it.
Yeah.
We're gonna win some and lose some, but ultimately we're gonna come out the top, right?
Yeah. And I've seen you do that so much, because not only do you communicate differently to each department because they have different needs.
Yeah.
Right? And like finance versus marketing versus all the other departments. So a big part of your job is hearing pitches all day long from folks like me, but also re-pitching it to your organization when you are bought in.
Yep. I have this amazing product manager, and he's like the stakeholder whisperer. So he knows how to, because he's manages a backlog, and he knows how to say, I know marketing, those ideas are the most important to you. And if I were to estimate value, you'd be like, that's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
And I know ops, that's $1 million idea, and finance, so I have to meet all of those things, and he does a really good job of traversing that to say, hey, but there's this million, and we think that is the $1 million idea. Can we go for that first? And our engineers think that that's the least effort, so we think we have a good ROI. And he does this really good dance with the stakeholders getting value and the engineers getting effort to provide like this unified ROI and say, can we go with this? And allowing everyone to collaborate. If you're bringing everyone into the room so you don't have the silos, then everyone's like, all right, I'll give up my pet project of this big initiative because of all the scope creep. You're right, we're all aligning to that. And so to not be in those silos is really important.
Did you say scope creep? I think I just started sweating.
Right?
Anthony and I are stressed. We're stressed. Hey, I'm going to put all of you on hot seat, all right? Toughest internal stakeholder? Finance. Wade? Franchise partners. Anthony?
It's operations.
Jared? Be nice. It's recorded.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I think it's operations.
Okay,
but
all right.
We have a good group.
I'm gonna expound on my answer.
Please.
And it's finance from the sense that they're the gatekeeper of the dollars.
Yeah.
But as we transition into this new normal, I don't think enough CFOs have transitioned into being more of a strategic partner versus a cost.
It's always value engineering.
And that's the piece where I feel like you can get operations and marketing on board. And a lot of times marketing brings you the idea, so they're on board anyway. Yeah. And then you're trying to pitch them to show it how it becomes more operationally efficient. And then the big one is, well, that's going to cost $1 million.
Yeah,
and now it's finance is like, ooh, where's the ROI? That's cost, that's this. And like, no, there might not be a monetary ROI sometimes. Yeah. And those are the harder ones to communicate, right? Like, I'm switching out a whole POS system. Yeah. What is that going to do for me?
Right. It's not like you're going to bring a ton of revenue.
Yeah. Right. How is that going to make it? So it's when you're pitching those off ideas that aren't related to finance and the true monetary ROI. So as we start to see more of our CFOs become more strategic and not the cost center, I think we'll have a better runway.
Absolutely.
You know, that question, had I answered it for Chili's a few years ago when I was with that brand, I would have said operations. Yeah. Because we owned most of our restaurants. Like a handful,
that's right.
And so it's really about nailing it for operations. And they were the most frustrated when things didn't go right because they're on the front line with the guests when there's something sideways, right? I think as I've transitioned more to a franchise role, that tends to be maybe a harder stakeholder to please. Yeah. Because they're paying you money for their royalties. They're trying to figure this out. If there's a problem with operations internally in your own restaurants, it's going to be a problem operationally in their restaurants, and then you're going to hear from the franchise partner about, hey, I own this business, and now you're disrupting me. So it's been a real interesting transition for me. It's ops and franchise; they're kind of one and the same, but
sure. So we all said the same.
To a large degree, you're a vendor for a bunch of entrepreneurs.
That's right.
Yeah. And you get to tell them what to do
and try to take money away from an entrepreneur. They get super mad.
It's very upsetting.
I'm great at giving it up. Guys, we talked about consolidation, but sometimes you don't have to consolidate. Sometimes you have to connect things better for better guest satisfaction. What are some consolidation or connections you're looking for in the industry that needs to happen as we look forward? Like maybe loyalty needs to speak to ordering a little bit better. Who are two folks you need them to talk to each other better?
Well, I'm going to go above people.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to go back to the systems. We need one API code.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't take me 3 months to integrate with another tech stack, right, or another platform. And if you can unify that and cut that time down, now we have an opportunity to focus on features and enhancements that actually are going to move the needle.
Yeah.
Instead of spending all my time trying to figure out, how does my loyalty program talk to the POS? How does the POS talk to the back office? Oh, there's a bug here, right? Like, again, going back to unification of the systems, one code, open source, allow people to communicate, let's focus, and then you start to bring real value,
Right.
in my opinion, or perspective, right? Then I can focus on, hey, Wade needs this, or he needs that, and how do we now build those things so it speaks more to our customer experience?
Absolutely.
I was diving, and he went up. I love that idea. Keep that going. I went to the problem I'm trying to solve, is just my marketing technology stack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a convoluted mess of who's my ESP, who's my marketing automation, who's my CDP, who's my data warehouse, who's my point adjudicator, who's my offer management, who's my front end. Like, it's like a cast of characters trying to string that all together. And then hopefully they've all worked together with some kind of API connections or some kind of JSON hook or whatever the heck we want to call it to connect. And the frustration with me is, man, it would be so nice just to get one organization that said, look, soup to nuts, we own it. And we're good at all of them.
Right.
But we also have the capability, if you wanted to bring in a legacy partner, that I could connect it. Because right now, I'm in the midst of this, and it is tough trying to get
Who are you using for, like, the CDP? I think of the CDP as the underlying, the foundational piece of the MarTech stack, but who are you using?
Well, one of the things,
because everyone thinks they're a CDP.
Well, that's the thing. You go and you talk to an Olo, or you talk to a Vicky, or you talk to one of these other players, and they have what's kind of the underlying CDP stuff. But the stringing of it all together, like, oh, well, we don't bring the SMS or the marketing automation piece. Well, I've got to go get
We don't do the e-commerce and the abandoned
we don't do the
carts
front end development.
Yeah, exactly.
We do the front end development.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's like I get the core of it. Like, you could be an offer management or point management system and then link into or be the same, connect the data underlining, if it's my Snowflake or if it's somewhere else. Yeah. That's great. But now I've got to get the communications out. So do I use marketing automation solution? Do I use an SMS tool? Do I use a separation? How do I get my front end to connect in so that the offers land in their wallet so that they show up at the point of sale and scan? Like, there's just a lot of nuances to that whole model. So that would be my ask, is like, man, somebody just come in and go, I'm going to own it soup to nuts, front end to marketing automation and everything in between, including helping you manage the data piece. I'd probably say, well, I'll pull my dollars from all the disparate pieces I have and hand them over. And
I think the problem with that is there are those groups and they're outside of restaurants, right? So there are tried and true retail MarTech stacks. And I think it's time for us to, we're not going to find it at MarTech. These aren't CDPs. I'm like, no, that's a database with PII in it. CDP is some of the connections, but it's identity resolution. It's the golden records. And so you go to that best of breed, which is going to be a Segment or a Microsoft Dynamics or a HubSpot or something.
But they're not playing heavily.
But they're not playing. Right? And the thing is then it's up to Nabil and Lunchbox and point of sale that you guys can feed, and we're having those conversations, right? That says, hey, I'm going outside for my MarTech because I need to play in that e-commerce space. And it's already been done before. It's just not been done in restaurants. So I'm going outside, best of breed that knows how to do that. And you need to play with open APIs. You need to be able to handle some element of guest tags, tagged data, elements, metadata, things like that. And Lunchbox, play in that. Just make your product so accessible to this core MarTech stack, and we'll push in, because that's the fundament. That's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for that universal record. So
we try to get there through tokenization, but even then it's not as clear because you don't have PII components in order to reach to the guest. You've got this tokenized record that rolls them up, but we just a real struggle with getting even the point of sale teams, the groups in the online ordering world to all play together to give us the data that's tokened appropriately.
But to Kevin's point, the tokenization, I think, and you said the same thing, that one-to-one marketing might not be it. The in and out marketing, they don't know Kevin's name, and Kevin's going to be there 4 times. So he's a token, right? And that's okay if they don't have the marketing but they have all the other analytics. They have that credit card. They have that ghost loyalty.
Well,
right?
so that goes back to,
Yeah.
whether it's tokenized or hashed record. Give
Sure.
me something that I can just see that it's Kevin, right?
Or it's
Or not even Kevin, just,
sure.
but it's that.
Yeah.
that's
And
the
then
same
he loves the fries,
That's
right?
right.
It's
Right.
real
That's all you
potatoes,
really
right?
need.
Yeah.
Just let me know. Yeah, that's the struggle.
Yeah, and I don't think that's in the restaurant industry. I think
I haven't
we all
found
have
it.
to go out.
I haven't found it.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and you asked about like futuristic, right?
Yeah.
At some point, loyalty goes away,
Yeah, I agree.
and here's why I say that is because when we grew up as kids, we were loyal, right? If I had Nike shoes on, more than likely I had a Nike shirt on. The kids today will have Reeboks, Adidas, and Nike, and something else. They're not as loyal as we were, right? As we've moved from generation to generation, I think the loyalty has dissipated, right? Our parents worked at the same company or whatever for 40 years.
Yeah.
That no longer exists. 2 years, 1 year, 3 months, people are hopping around. So how do you create an experience that regardless of loyalty or discount or anything that people want to interact with you?
Well, again, we say on the digital side, speed is loyalty. So we don't have traditional. Speed is loyalty.
Yeah.
Removing the friction. That's really what we're
Yeah,
all
that's all
doing.
about.
Where it's all about removing friction. A fork is technology, and it removed the friction of having to eat with your hands, right? So speed is loyalty, and you don't need to know who they are, but if you can serve up an experience for them because you kind of know who they are without having to directly market them, you're probably going to get even more loyalty. A lot of people like to be anonymous, and they want it frictionless, and there you that's it. That's a loyalty program.
That's going to be my last question, which Kevin ruined, which was, thank you, Kevin. He's that kid.
done.
You know what kid he was in the class.
Yeah,
No one
we're
here
done.
is-
We're going out early.
No one here is confused about how Kevin was in high school. Right?
Teacher up front,
Yeah.
right there.
So my last question is exactly what Kevin answered. A bold prediction for the future that you're excited, either for someone else to build, for yourself to build, and how we can make our guests a little bit happier, our franchises a little bit happier. And I'll end with a fun question. A word we want to ban. A fad word.
Can I use my
You can use CDP.
prediction before we ban the word?
You can do whatever. Use the prediction, but then let's ban a word. I'll hear CDP. If I hear CDP 4 times, we're cheating.
Yeah.
I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
I noodle on this stuff all the time. So I think one of the biggest problems that plague the restaurant space today is missing and incorrect in the off-premise world. Now, not necessarily in our 4 walls, because we can solve that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm sorry,
That's
let me give
right.
you another drink, let me solve the problem.
Yeah.
But it's when they roll up to the drive-thru, they come in to go,
Yes.
we miss something, right?
Yes.
And both at Chili's and Maggiano's and It's Just Wings, and then now with Costa, I forgot the drink and I forgot the ranch. And if you forget those things, and then there's a litany of other things.
Yeah.
If you forget them, it ruins the meal in the moment, but then it ruins the transaction
Yeah.
the next time.
Yeah.
Because they want to come back. So all that set up, I think I'm going to say the term, AI operational components that will help us. Because we talk about being a people business, but yet the labor costs are getting more and more expensive. The turnover is getting higher and higher. There's competitions for these jobs. How do you make it so that it becomes that the computing systems do a lot of the heavy lifting and the people are just validating that what's being analyzed or fixed or solved or done, whether it's cooking equipment or to-go world, can be, that's right, send it out. So the big idea is artificial intelligence or computer vision around
It's vision
understanding-
AI.
it's
I
vision
think
AI.
vision
Yeah.
AI
Get it
will
right.
transform
It will change everything.
a lot of industries.
Yeah.
But it's not
not
there.
here. That's right.
It's like we're just getting to that sort of sound and generative speech AI. But
we're not there.
we had Dragon Natural Speak 25 years ago, and it's just starting to get there. And so I tell people, they're like, well, I want the cameras to know that blue Toyota Prius pulled up, and I want to ring it, and oh my gosh, I got that on my curbside, so I know what to bring to them, and I want that. And there's other CTOs trying to do this vision AI on the line accuracy stuff, and they're like, you have no idea how hard this is.
It is so hard.
It's so impossible.
It will
And
get
Ops
there.
sees it, they see it on a website, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to run with that project. We just had that. We're going to run with that project. We'll have that out earlier than the rest of the Takeout Initiative. I'm like, you guys have no idea about Vision AI, but that is the future. It could help us. We have people that walk around that make sure, that that the people have left the table now because after pay, people will linger for a little bit. Oh, they left the table. Now we can see that. That should be Vision AI. It should be Vision AI with the busser coming into that, right? Right. Hey, it looks like they sat up now with a dirty table.
Dishes that need
Vision
to be removed.
AI for everything and for the accuracy. I think that's transformative. Is the Vision AI? I think it's 10 years away.
Is that your bold prediction for the future?
When we meet 15 years.
It won't be 2 years.
Yeah.
It might be 5 years.
Okay.
It'll probably in play in 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the word we're banning?
Do they can't say it? Nobody can say it.
No one can use it after you.
I can't say that word because AI is still a big thing. But
You want
to use AI? Yeah.
That's mean if you picked AI. That's mean.
I'll have to say omnichannel.
Omnichannel. That's a fair
Yeah,
one.
there you go.
Kevin,
there you go.
Do you know what word you want to ban before I go to these gentlemen?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
Digital.
Digital.
Digital. Yes.
Okay. You guys can use it. You
Yeah.
guys can use it, but
Yeah.
I love it. Digital, omnichannel. Should we go to you, Anthony?
A band term, or
A ban term and a prediction.
I am also going to ban omnichannel.
Omnichannel for
Wow.
sure.
We used to
Everyone
say
thinks-
omnichannel a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
We stopped.
yeah.
We stopped saying it.
Yeah,
Our head of
it's-
marketing removed it.
Yeah, no, it's it should be banned. So
Yeah.
I'm going to not use it. Prediction for the future. So I come from a bit of an AI background. I'm very familiar with the very low-lying PhD level behind the Vision AI. I think that's going to be great. I think you're more than 10 years out on that.
I think we're more than 10 years out.
That's interesting.
It's just going to be very, very difficult. I actually think that the kitchen is an area inside restaurants that has not seen a ton of tech innovation in the last decade.
Funny you say that.
I think when you start talking about KDSs and you talk about speed of service and you talk about all the things that can go wrong and this guy doesn't know how to do the fry line or we've got the wrong person or the training or whatever, I think that as you start looking at that and how that compounds, we do a lot of work on the front end with service and tablets and pay at the table and all of that. And then all those guys get clobbered when the kitchen gets behind or the line's backed up or the online ordering comes through and we get slammed and now everybody had a bad experience in the four walls. I think that being able to do a better job of predicting and ordering and knowing where the problems are, especially as you build every kitchen slightly differently, because they're all the same, right? Everything's the same.
Supposed to be.
Yeah. I think that's where we're going to start seeing innovation to service guests.
It's funny you say that. Like on fads, right after pandemic and the NFT loyalty went crazy. And I remember when Howard Schultz came back to Starbucks and his first annual investor meeting was we lost our way. We started doing NFT loyalty and that doesn't remove friction. That's a cool marketing whiz-bang thing. He said, who knew that what the greatest innovation we needed to do was build double volume, double capacity coffee making machines that we had to engineer because it just wasn't in the industry for people that do our size. And so to your point, that's a big initiative for me is I'm going to NRA this year because I want to look at the kitchen equipment and I want to see where we can get, some IoT type stuff or where we can get efficiencies. Is there do I have to engineer something better? And it's not the robot arms. Those aren't there yet, but is there a better oven? Is there a better dishwasher? That conveyor, all of that stuff in the back of the house. I think there's a lot of near-term efficiency. Unfortunately, I was hoping you would say Vision AI would be closer than that.
Yeah. Beyond a decade crushed me. But,
it did crush me. I think it's transformational.
Yes.
Jared, take us home. Your bold prediction.
I said it. I think these guys are all smarter than me.
Fine.
No omni-channel, absolutely.
All right.
Because again, there is a fundamental difference between self-service and that hospitality in the restaurant.
Yeah.
There is no omni-channel. They are two different mechanisms. POS is not going away.
I love that. You heard that here first.
I heard it. Yeah, we're gonna put it down.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. You guys are some of the busiest people in the business, and you guys are doing some of the most innovative things in the business. So thank you so much for making some time. I personally learned so much. I wish I was able to take notes instead of just asking questions, but that was incredible. We learned a lot of things, but my favorite takeaway is the fact that our spouses are making us fix Wi-Fi at home, and we are second tier. That's really the next business we start. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.